All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a One Piece discussion. And I am delighted to be sitting here today with my friend Jonathan, who is starting a One Piece channel. It's JPLaughTales, and there will be a link in the description. But Jonathan is not new to One Piece. Jonathan is somebody I know actually through my own One Piece videos. And he's left a ton of really insightful, beautiful, helpful comments. Very supportive, just wonderful person to interact with. And so I'm really excited to have a chance to talk with you today, Jonathan, and celebrate you starting your own channel, One Piece channel. And we're gonna basically my goal here today is to have you talk about your One Piece journey and what this series means to you. And then you and I are going to just geek out for a little bit on One Piece and talk about our favorite
Absolutely.
moments and characters. And then finally, I think we'll get a little bit of an idea of where you think you may be going with your channel so that people have an idea. By the end, they're all going to want us to subscribe, I'm sure. So,
I hope
let's,
so.
yeah. So, but thank you for being here, Jonathan. I'm really excited
Thank,
to chat with you.
thank you for taking the time to do this and speak with me, I didn't expect to have this opportunity. I was okay with like just DMing you. But thank you. It's nice to speak to you about something I'm very passionate about face to face. As you said, like I've been commenting on your videos for a very long time now, so it's nice to have like an actual two-sided conversation with you about this.
Yeah, I mean, what better thing to talk about than One Piece, right?
Exactly. I can go on forever. I'm sorry this video is gonna be 25 hours long, but
Well, we- we'll have to put some restrictions on you then, but yeah, fortunately, you are going to have a channel where you can go on and on and on, like One
yes,
Piece
that
itself, right?
yeah.
Uh,
I
I
mean
mean,
that's kind of why I created it too, because I'm sure my friends who don't watch One Piece are tired of me talking about One Piece. So I'm like, I'm gonna put it in a place, so that I can just keep going and whoever's interested can log in and check it out.
good. And I know there's going to be a lot of people interested because based on your comments and our previous chat, I know you're going to have a lot of really awesome things to say about this series. But let us begin. So you're not a newbie, you're a veteran. You know this series inside and out, backwards and forwards. Tell us about your One Piece journey, and I'll interrupt you occasionally, but you take it away.
Yeah, well, okay. So first of all, I'm not even sure. One Piece is such an expansive and comprehensive story. I feel like I still don't know enough about One Piece, but I have been reading One Piece for my estimate is like 17 years. Because I don't have like a definite time when I did start reading it because I had no idea what it would evolve into. I was just starting this story my friends told me about. It was my third manga I ever read. First one was I Shield 21, which is about American football. Um, Second one was Naruto, and then One Piece was my third.
Okay. And
And I started.
not trying to pin down your age here or anything, but you were fairly young when you started
I
reading.
was a teenager, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
All right.
yeah, mid-teens. Um, I was in high school, mid-teens, and yeah, and I just really enjoyed the story. I remember starting it, and like as soon as I think it was that Shanks scene, that Shanks
Oh yeah.
scene got me where, he saves Luffy and then puts the hat on his head. I'm like, yeah, I'm in. I'm also gonna be king of the pirates.
That's so great. I
Um,
Shanks from the very beginning too.
oh
Just
yeah.
and I keep saying in my videos, I want to see more Shanks, and then I'll get some comments like, yeah, so do we.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
No, but so I caught up in like one summer. This was back then when it was maybe like 400, 300 chapters at that point. So
Okay.
fairly doable, and also being a student, I had the entire summer to myself. I actually read it while working at my dad's office. So like he gave me like some random spreadsheets to do, and I'm like just on the internet just reading manga.
So
Oh.
does your dad know that you were sneaking into one of these?
What's the worst that could happen, you know?
Of
I did get the stuff that I had to do done,
course.
but I would say 80% of my time at that job was spent reading One Piece. Um, but yeah, when I caught up, I became weekly, and I had been weekly for over a decade. And and then 2023, the One Piece film Red came out,
Uh-huh.
and there hadn't been a movie release in a while. And the story was also at a point where it got it was really exciting. What was going on in the story was really exciting. And I think because I was so into what was happening in One Piece at the time, it made the movie coming out feel even more special.
Hmm.
And so I'm based in New York, and they had like this whole launch thing in Times Square where One Piece was taking over Times Square, and they're all on the screens. And like anyone who lives in New York will tell you, we're not going to Times Square. Like it's
Yeah.
busy, too many people, too many tourists.
Yeah.
And
I'm,
yeah,
I'm
it's
not a native of New York, but even I avoid Times Square at all costs. Yeah.
yeah, but I'm going to this. I have to go to this, you know? And then I'm in Times Square watching the thing, and I'm like, did I just leave my house to go to Times Square? I must really like this thing, you know?
Yeah.
But it was a moment of realization that I was like, oh wait, I don't actually I've acknowledged that I really love this thing and how significant this thing is to me. But
Yeah.
like, I have nothing to show for it. I had no physical volumes of the manga. I was only reading it online. I had no merch, like nothing. I didn't even have like a keychain or anything.
Corrected that a little bit there, but
Yes, yeah. Uh, I have more than enough now. But I decided at that point, you know what? I have not revisited the story. I've been watching. I've been reading it week to week, but I never reread it. And so I decided I was gonna buy volume one, and that turned to volume two, three, and now I'm at 108, 109.
okay.
Um, and it was interesting because it reading something week to week versus like reading it straight through as you
Yeah.
are two different experiences.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I think they both have their pluses, but there was, for example, no, well, number one, when I started the story when I was a teenager. And so I think my relationship with the story was different because I had a specific teenage view of it that I still kind of held on to a certain extent.
Which
It's
is
weird.
great, by the way. Nothing wrong with
Yeah,
it, right?
yeah, yeah.
But
But
it's a
you
story
know,
that
I'm
you
not.
can read so many different ways, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But I think I was still reading it at a surface level because I
Uh-huh.
think
Uh-huh.
that's the level I was at when I was introduced to it.
Hmm.
It was just purely enjoyment. And I mean, One Piece does like touch on certain things that certain themes that are pretty obvious, but I never really dove into it. I never took the time to really understand the characters
Uh-huh.
and be attentive to, their different quirks and why they could be the way they are,
Uh-huh.
and so when I reread it, I realized, first of all, how intentional Oda's writing is,
Hmm.
a lot of the times, not just with the overall story, but with how he builds his characters, the arcs themselves and what they mean and what the messages that I think he's trying to convey in these arcs.
Yeah.
Um, and it really changed my relationship with the story because I'm like,
Wow.
oh, this is actually really good.
It's deep. It's
Like,
actually really deep.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I'm also like a photographer. I'm a musician. I'm an artist, and something that I've realized over the years is like with any kind of art, there are levels to experiencing that art,
Yes.
and and so there's surface level enjoyment, but then there's also like being able to get to a level where you observe the intentionality of the piece. Why why this artist use if it's a painter, why did he use oil paint versus watercolor,
Mm.
or like the brush strokes, like certain things that you're like, oh, this was done deliberately. What are they trying to tell me?
Hmm.
And Yeah, I mean, there are certain characters, I'm not gonna lie, there are certain crew members who I just didn't feel that strongly about. And on a reread, I'm like, oh no, I get you. I really get you. And I love all of you so equally because
Yeah.
I I understand who you are now.
Yeah. And how I
Um,
can even see myself in you, you know?
yes, no, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. We'll talk about which characters are which, I guess, in a bit. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's wonderful. So you really are experiencing the story nowadays at a level that's, and I can tell from your comments that you're reading into the layers here. You're
Yeah.
getting the themes and the beautiful emotional development of the characters and their long-term arcs and
Yes.
what we can learn about our own world from this tremendous series. It's
Yes.
just so vast what this is. This is a
Yes.
really amazing thing that Oda's pulling off here. Just I'm amazed every time I go back to it and just this is really something special, you know.
It really is. It really is. I mean, I could talk about, I don't know, I could talk about the animals in One Piece for
Uh-huh.
like an hour. You know,
Yeah.
like I think he takes enough time with every aspect of the world to make it feel like a living, breathing world. The
Mm-hmm.
characters there, I don't know if you've ever seen these memes. There are these memes for like different shows where it's like, who would you want to sit with on a long car trip, you know? And I'm like, and they give you like a list of characters, and I can like reason out, you know, what each person would be like in this four-person situation because I'm
Sure.
like, oh, this person is gonna be doing this to annoy this person and that person just because I know their personalities so well, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I mean, even the simple things, something that I did notice on my first reread is like the fact that he switches up who's with who in
Mm-hmm.
every arc.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have like something I noticed, for example, is how differently Chopper like interacts or acts depending on who he's with.
Uh-huh.
Like if he's with Nami and Usopp, he's scared. If he's with like Sanji or Zoro, he's manning up, you know, he's brave, he's getting it done. You know, it's and he's the youngest of the group, so of course he's following his role models. You know, it just makes so much sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
And
and it's very true that as we interact with different people, they bring out different aspects of who we are. Yeah, absolutely.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And yeah, it's amazing. And then going back to talking about, you know, the week to week versus reading straight through experience,
Yeah.
there are also arcs that are like I maybe didn't feel too strongly about that. When I reread, I'm like, wow, this is great. You know, the week to week was, I mean, one of the more recent arcs, you're a few arcs away, was took place like over like 4 years of real time. So yeah, it's like one of the it's longer than most anime series. That arc. So
Yeah. Wow.
so so the week to week experience for that was just like I mean, yes, there were interesting things happening, but you're also like, wow, this is taking a very long time to get to the
Mm-hmm.
point.
Mm.
And but then reading it straight through, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I see exactly why he took the time to build every piece to
Huh.
get to this climax and make it as amazing as it was.
Yeah.
But week to week also, um, I'm sure, especially in the arc, you have you finished though?
Not quite. Not quite. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, post time skip Oda writes a lot denser.
Mm.
I feel like he adds a lot more in each chapter now, and
Uh-huh.
so there's even more going on at any one time.
Yep.
Because I feel like there was a deliberate there was an intentionality in how the story has changed in terms of like pre-time skip was very much like we're just on a journey and wherever we end up we end up. And post-time skip is very much like, no, we have a mission and we're going to places on purpose.
But
I don't know if you noticed that.
do you feel then he's become more intentional as an author?
I
Um,
think he's
'Cause
become more
he had
intentional.
to have changed in these 20 something years of
Yeah,
doing this, right?
yeah.
And it would be
But
impossible for anyone not to change in the course of writing over more than 2 decades. I would
yes,
so yeah.
yes. I mean, I do think he was always intentional,
Uh-huh.
but I think he's I think like him, the characters have also become more intentional because
Hmm.
they have grown, they have matured, they have realized that it's a serious world. It's like when we got to Sabaody and everyone got Kuma'd away.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, and then what happened at Marineford, it was the point of the series where we were like, nothing will ever be the same. Like we need to buckle up. It's not just a fun journey anymore. I mean, it was always serious from the
mm,
beginning, but it's not all fun and games anymore, you know?
yeah.
And the characters have matured to an extent as well, in that they're a little bit more serious, and I think Oda's I can't wait for you to finish though.
Okay, yeah.
I commented on your last video. I'm like, I think you'll want to do a separate video for Zoe. We'll see.
Okay, okay. Yeah. I may
Yeah,
do that. I may do that. Yeah.
yeah,
But it's funny because I do see what you're talking about, and at the same time, I feel that Oda has still preserved the goofiness, which I'm so glad that is still
yes,
there. That just
yes,
that free-spirited zaniness, the
yes,
silliness, because I don't know if I can name another series where you had this wedding of goofy and yet deep, really important thematic work that is so relevant to our world and the things that
yes,
we really need to work through. I don't
yes,
know how he does that, how he
yeah,
those two together. In fact, you would think that would be impossible, but
yeah,
he does it. And so, I mean, do you ever laugh or cry more than when you're reading One Piece? I
yeah.
mean,
All that, yeah. That's the thing of that, and I think that's what keeps us. It's like
yeah,
there's so much. It's a joyful story. It
it
really is a
is.
joyful story.
That's a good word. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's there's something beautiful. That's what kind of keeps you going, because it's like some stories are just very heavy, and you feel like, okay, I might need to take a break because this was very dense, this was very heavy. I need to take a break from this because it's making me anxious or whatever. But
yeah.
One Piece never feels like that. Even if it's like, even in the saddest moments, of
Mm,
course you're hit with the shock, the sadness and everything, you know. But then, and it's masterfully done in a way where it doesn't diminish the bad stuff that you
right,
experience. It's
right.
done very tastefully.
It actually
Uh,
enhances the whole experience where you feel
yes.
like you get all of life here, you know?
Yeah.
And it is joyful, and at the same time, there are serious, terrible, sorrowful things that happen, and
Yep.
and he's looking square in the face of some of the worst oppression that you could, talk about that people go
Yeah.
through. Its effects on people. He's not shy about being honest about the effects of
Yep.
all of this, and yet there is this spirit, there is this just vitality to it, the whole thing. It's so colorful and beautiful at the same time. So
Yeah.
and that joyful is a really good word for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's also because he leans into the bizarre and
Uh-huh.
the exaggeration of
Yes.
things.
Yes.
I think it's easy to. I'm sorry, we're kind of going off track here, but like, I
No.
have this thing with Usopp. So
Okay.
Usopp was one of the characters I didn't appreciate as much when I was younger.
Okay. I think that's
And
actually not uncommon. Yeah.
oh, I know,
Yeah.
but like revisiting it, I'm like, okay, so. When I look at every other, he was the boy who cried wolf. He's very silly, you know, but like at the end of the day, he's a very sad kid. And
Yeah.
there are certain things I realized where I was just like, oh wait, when I look at him compared to everyone else, people say, you know, Usopp's weak and this and that, and he's scared and blah blah blah. And Usopp is the only one who grew up without a role model in his life.
Mm. Yeah.
Everyone else, to some extent, had someone in their life who helped guide them to be the person that they are. You look at Luffy, he kind of had Garp, he had Dadan, he had Shanks,
Yeah.
you know. Zoro had his relationship with Queen, and he grew up in a dojo. You know,
Yeah.
he was born to be a fighter.
Sanji had
San
Chef Zeph, right?
Chef Zeph,
Yeah.
even Nami had Belmare. And to an extent, she also had Arlong. She grew up in a tough
I
environment.
mean, that's a horrible mentor, but it is a mentor. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. She was exposed to a lot of things, and she had to be tough to grow up. Meanwhile, Usopp's just some weird orphan kid, you
Right.
know, whose mom told him that his dad is a brave pirate, and so he's, just imagining these great imaginative dreams of like, ooh, what this might be like. And something also I think is very important is like his mom's role in all of this, because I think his mom could have easily been like, your dad is a deadbeat, and he left us and blah 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 blah. But his mom made sure that even if she was not gonna be there,
Hmm.
she instilled hope in him. She instilled that idea that no, your dad is a brave man. Your
Right.
dad and you're gonna be brave too. That kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I think even that it kind of shapes his character in a way where it's like, oh,
Sure.
he doesn't
Because
have
he's learned about the power of stories,
he's
you know,
learned
and
about the
that's what
power of
this whole
story.
series is about.
Yeah.
It's this stories help us to understand and deal with life,
Yes.
and that is what Usopp does. He's is
Yep.
a living illustration of
Yes.
stories can help us cope. And he is actually both telling big truth with his lies,
Yeah.
but also his lies turn out to be not so much lies in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yes.
interesting
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
Oda is sending this message that it is very important to understand that stories, even if they're not literally true, are about big truths, and we
Yeah.
see that through this character more than any other, and
Yep.
that's really important.
Yep. He's the king of fake it till you make it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he's making it. I think, I mean, low key, he's kind of achieved his goal already. I
Hmm.
know there's probably gonna be a big moment, that where it's like we've solidified that this is the thing. But he has like one of the vaguest goals in the story, which is to become a brave warrior of the sea. And I
Right.
think I think we can acknowledge that he's kind of, if he hasn't already achieved it, he's pretty on his way to being.
I mean, he's even God Usopp,
Yeah.
right? Definitely.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I feel like we've already moved into the second part of our discussion, really, which
Yes.
to talk about our favorites and some of our
Yes.
favorite moments. Now, we're gonna this at this point, guys. I don't think we've had really any significant spoilers up to now, but this is a warning if you haven't gotten as far as I have in the series, which is I finished Dressrosa. So we'll do spoilers through Dressrosa,
Yeah.
maybe for this part of the conversation. So if you haven't gotten through Dressrosa, you might want to bail out at this point. But we're gonna just do whatever we feel like, And so we talked about anything else you want to say about Usopp and any of his significant roles because he does get, I think, a significant moment there in Dressrosa
Yeah.
where his memory of Robin is taken away because he
Yes.
turned into a toy, right?
Yes. I actually,
And
I'm actually curious about how you feel about that, because there was a theory that came out about um what happened with Usopp when Robin's the memory of Robin was taken away.
yeah,
And the theory is, which it wasn't confirmed by Oda, but it's like the ongoing theory was that he had to re-go through his character development that he got from Enies Lobby,
mm,
because him all of the Enies Lobby stuff didn't happen
right.
in his memory. And so, which is why he reverted to being scared and everything again.
He regrets.
He
Yeah.
regressed. He regressed, and kind of had to like fight through that on different terms, on his own.
I do like that theory, and in large part because the truth about life is that we learn through our interactions with other people.
Yeah,
We depend on our friends, our family, our acquaintances to develop. And that would be a really cool way of illustrating how dependent we are on these interactions with other people. Take them
yeah,
away, and then we've lost all that progress.
yeah,
We've lost all that perspective that we've gained through those interactions. So I'd
yeah,
like to think that that theory is correct.
yeah,
I mean, you certainly see him. He's terrified and he's running away,
yeah,
but he does have it within himself in that moment to relearn that no, I have to be loyal here. I have to be, these people believe in me. I have to do
Hmm.
whatever. Maybe it's feeble, maybe I can't do enough, but I'm gonna go down fighting at least. I'm gonna,
Yeah.
and I really love that moment when he turns
Oh
around
yeah. It's
and
so beautiful. It's so
yeah.
beautiful. It forces him. It kind of reminds you of that Arlong Park moment where
Mm,
like
right.
he needs to face his lies and be like, no, like people, as you said, like people are depending on me, and
Mhm.
how can I show face? You know, how can I show my face if I don't go through with this?
Right.
You
Yep.
know? Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So I love that moment. And he's had lots of great moments that I've really appreciated. But um,
I also thought it was very clever to have him. I don't remember exactly what was said, but the moment after, like he's all beat up and
mm.
Hajrudin holds him up, and like he can like barely talk, but and so only some of his words are coming out.
Yeah.
But and people completely misinterpret what he's saying.
Yeah.
I thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
That's like one of my
That's the
favorite.
birth of God Usopp there.
Yeah. And the light shines in on him. I don't know, I don't remember if it's shown in the manga, but in the anime, the ceiling has just opened and the light is shining on him during that scene. It's so great.
I mean,
It's so funny.
this giant is holding him up, and he's like
Yeah.
this little doll. Yeah, I know. It's really just fantastic. The humor in here. I love
Yeah.
laughing while I'm reading this series. So yeah, who else I mean, is it possible for you to say this is my favorite character?
Oh,
Or
absolutely.
yeah,
And
okay,
I am not shy about that. Sanji is
okay.
my favorite character.
Sanji is your favorite character. All right, we got
Sanji
to
is my
talk about Sanji. And why is Sanji your favorite character?
So first of all, I think Sanji had, and this is teenage Jonathan also. I think Sanji had the coolest introduction.
The backstory, I have to say, was probably one of the most immediately like,
Oh
wow,
yeah,
this is really good storytelling. Yeah.
yes, yes. I mean that even added to that, yeah. But it's his intro. I will always remember because I liked, and he has kind of changed. I liked the cool, badass, you know, like pretends he doesn't care about anything,
Right.
Sanji, you
Right.
know, and the fact that I don't know if you remember, it was what was his name? Full Body, I think,
Hmm.
the Marine who came to the restaurant on it with his date,
Yes. 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 Yes.
and he's trying to impress his date, so he pre-orders this wine so that he can act like he knows that it's has flavors of blah 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 blah. And then Sanji pulls up and he's like, "You're absolutely wrong. The wine you chose was trash. I chose a better one."
Yeah. Yeah.
And so everyone's laughing at this guy now because he looks like an idiot. And then Sanji now starts flirting with his date.
Of course. Yeah.
And he's even more upset and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna ruin this restaurant," and puts the fly in the soup. And Sanji's like, "Take it out." Like, I don't see what the problem is.
Right. Don't
Like,
waste food. Don't
yeah,
waste.
don't waste food. Like, what are you even complaining about? You
Right.
know? And then the guy destroys the whole table and spills the food, and Sanji is like, "Oh, like you messed up." Uh, and then like it's like the next flip, and he has full body in his hands in a chokehold, and
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, this guy is kind of intense, you
Yeah.
know. But mirroring that to like how emotional Sanji actually is,
Yeah.
he puts on this facade of like, oh, he's all cool and suave, but then a couple chapters later, and he's like on his knees crying his eyes out because he's leaving his dad, you know, playing the tough guy routine the whole time. And then when he breaks, leaving that ship, he starts walking away. They both of them are acting all cool.
Yeah.
And then he turns around and gets on his knees and he's like, "Thank you so much for everything," you know?
Yeah. That's the ending of
Uh,
Baratier, right? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh
Even him,
yeah.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was saying like even him, his arc in that story of like, recognizing that, and he still deals with this where he's like just so self-sacrificial. Um,
Yes.
he's looking at Luffy and Zoro fighting, and he's like, why are these guys doing this? You know, why are they? Why? And and Zeph is just like pay attention. Just
Mm,
pay attention, just keep watching. Look at people who are determined and are gonna follow their dreams no matter what. Like look
mhm.
at their resolve, and trying to teach Sanji in that moment that, you can't stay here forever trying to like make it up to me. My dreams have changed. I am completely happy with this ship. You do not owe me anything. I made my own choices and I chose to save you. I do not regret it. It's time for you to make your own choices and follow
Yeah,
your own dreams.
yeah.
And then in general, I just think he is like one of the most empathetic characters on the crew. I
He is.
think
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I think a lot of people only see that he's obsessed with women and don't realize that he kind of does help everyone, like even people who are not women. He's always the one who's like, especially his relationship with Usopp. Like he understands Usopp and he's the one who's like always making sure he's okay and everyone else is okay. He's staying in the back to make sure everyone is fine while Zoro and Luffy are going crazy elsewhere. Um I mean, that moment in Eni's lobby where like Usopp is going through everything. Actually, him throughout Eni's lobby, it's one of his best arcs too,
Uh-huh. For
because
sure.
he goes off on his own looking for Robin.
Yep.
He understands that there's something deeper. I mean, it's played off as a gag, but like he understands that there's something deeper going on here.
I mean, he's
Because I
actually very intuitive and one of the cleverest, if not the most clever in some
Yeah,
ways, of the
yeah,
Straw Hats.
yeah,
He's actually a very insightful character in many ways, except he has this tremendous blind spot, which is women.
yeah,
And as much as I do get annoyed with the nosebleeds and
yeah,
all that
yeah,
silliness, it's more like an affectionate kind of listen, son, it's more like that. It's not
yeah,
like I don't think he's evil or
yeah.
he's not predatory.
Yeah, he's
Um,
not.
he's just
He needs to get it together.
kind of pathetic in a way. And it's funny because he is so cool in every other respect,
Yeah,
but he has this flaw, if you want to call it that,
yeah,
or whatever, but he just cannot disguise, that he wants to be this chivalrous,
yeah,
knight, shining armor to all women. And it's interesting because I think it shows a certain vulnerability in him, actually.
yes,
That as much as you could read it as a character flaw, I think you could also say it shows a certain vulnerability in him that there's something I don't think I've gotten his full backstory either, by the way. I think there's more to it that I may be close to reading. I'm not sure.
okay,
But anyway, whatever the case, I mean, you do get that the whole Chef Zeph thing and how they were starving and how Chef Zeph sacrificed for him and all that. And he learned a lot from that experience.
yes,
But I feel like there's more to it even maybe and that I haven't seen yet, but there's something behind the reason there's something about why he views women that way. I feel like
yeah,
I
yeah.
haven't gotten that story yet, but I feel like there's something happened
I'm
to him.
not saying anything.
Yeah, okay. You're giving a really good poker face there. So I'm waiting for that, and I also feel like it's not something that I need to condemn him for. I
Yeah,
feel like yeah, I can understand why some people would get annoyed with it,
yeah,
but I just want to kind of sit him down and say, even if you do feel that way all the time about the beautiful women you come across, you got to play it cool,
yeah. You
You
know what?
know?
So on that especially, I did not. So I'm not from the US. I'm from St. Lucia originally.
Uh-huh.
And my experience with anime in general, I've been watching anime. I mean, I watched Dragon Ball Z and everything when I was 6 years old. So I have been pretty familiar with anime and their tropes. And I feel like One Piece also comes from a time where like
Yeah.
the pervy character was definitely always like just always existed. There's
Yeah.
always that one person, and I think it's unfortunate that Sanji is the one who has to be that character.
I mean, Brooke
Um,
shares a little bit of that, but
yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He takes a little bit away,
He
shares the
takes from
load.
Sanji.
Shares the
Thank you,
load.
Brooke. Yeah.
No, but I think because growing up with it, I feel like so I think there are a lot of people who aren't used to it, who it I think we can all agree it's not always the most tasteful thing, but from a
Hmm.
cultural standpoint, like it doesn't affect me. I don't even see it anymore.
Uh-huh.
And because I'm just like, I know he's deeper than that. I know that it's just a trope that or a gag that's for gag purposes.
Right.
So for me, it's just very much like when in re-engaging with the story and then starting to watch other people's YouTube videos and blah 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 and seeing people on social media talking about Sanji, it was very shocking to me how many people were completely turned off by Sanji just because of the
Uh-huh.
gag.
Yeah.
And although I do understand, especially like Thriller Bark Sanji,
Yeah.
um, especially that moment, I do understand how people can be turned off by it. Um, it had never been the forefront thing for me for Sanji. And so even when I reread it, I was like, it still wasn't, but I found even more depth in who he was as a character, you know? I
Yeah.
started noticing all the little things he does all the time where he's just always clutch. Going back to Water 7 in Enies lobby, he's like he stops Luffy from saying what he was gonna say to Usopp and is like don't basically like don't say anything you'll regret, you
Right.
know.
Which Luffy
What
always, he famously, at the moment he's told, "Don't do this,"
yeah,
he's gonna blab.
yeah. Yeah, and then people are and then he has this moment with Chopper where the Aqua Laguna is coming and he and Chopper are like we can't let him know that we're trying to help him because it'll bruise his ego more. So
Yeah.
let's stay and that's he's also like being a big brother to Chopper in that moment too where he's like this is how we deal with situations like this.
Yeah.
This is how we under like how we preserve people's emotions and make sure that we don't harm them further in
Yeah.
that moment because he's like let's stay back here and shout out it's funny in the moment but it's also like this is what he's doing right now. He understands that if Usopp knows that they're thinking about him and whatever he's gonna feel even worse than he already is,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's try to do the thing while not making Usopp feel worse. Then there's that scene in Enies lobby where like Usopp
Mhm.
ends up getting mismatched with the wolf guy, Jabra, I think.
Yes. Okay.
And
One of CP9.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And Usopp is like, "Oh my gosh, I failed. I'm so sorry again," and blah blah blah. And Sanji's like,
Yeah.
we all have things that we cannot do, and we all have things that we can do.
That's a great moment.
Do
Yeah.
what you can do."
Yeah.
And he doesn't tell him what to do. He's just like, "You sit down, you think about it. I know you can do it. You just need to execute."
And I think
Um,
that's so true to life too, because you can have a person who shows such emotional intelligence in a moment like that, who also has a blind spot, who has a
yep.
flaw, you know?
But that's the thing. He acknowledges because that comes right after he loses to the
Yeah.
soap lady
Because she's a woman. Yeah.
because she's a woman, and so he acknowledges this is his weakness, and
Hmm.
that's why it means even more because he's like, as we can see, here's the thing that I can't do,
Right.
but I'm here to back you up because I know that this is what I'm good at.
Yeah.
This area is my domain. You now need to follow my lead and
Yeah.
go find what you can do that we can't.
And then Usopp actually ends up, is that where he stops? Who is it? Perona? Is that, am I remembering
No,
that?
that's when he shows Sniper King.
Oh,
I
yes, of
think
course. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think Usopp passed
Oh,
on the message to
you're
Sniper.
talking about any. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Eddie's.
I'm
This is
in
when he
Thriller Bark. Yeah.
yeah, that's when he pops up on the roof and like he snipes Spandam and also I think he shoots the key or whatever. Such a
Yes.
great scene.
Yes. And also later he shoots the flag
He
when
shoots the flag.
Luffy tells
Yes.
him to in
Yes.
that
Oh my
moment. Just
gosh.
before probably my favorite moment still in the entire series is Robin's I Want to Live.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
I'm getting chills right now.
Chills, yes.
Yeah. It's just and I do think that Luffy and Usopp and all of them being lined up like that and just
Oh,
that
so
moment,
powerful.
so powerful. So
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also the way it happened where they pulled up one by one. You know, because
Yep.
I think at first, like Luffy pulls the way it goes is like Robin's on the balcony. She sees Luffy, and she already knows Luffy is crazy, so she's like not too moved by it. She's like, I knew this idiot, like not in a bad way, but like I'm sure, like of course this idiot showed up, you know. But
Yeah,
then they come in one by one,
yeah,
and like it's a moment of like, oh wait, like they all came, you know,
right.
and they
Like
all
this is the
stand up there
yeah,
being like, we're here for you.
yep,
And she's like, you don't understand, blah blah blah. And Luffy, for one of the first times, like Luffy listens,
yeah,
and
yeah,
he's like, oh no, I get it. Sniper King. Like, if this is what you're afraid of, okay. Like, Sniper King, shoot down that flag. And
yeah.
like Sniper King's like, yeah, Roger, you know? Roger that.
Love it. And they're a family. You know, you just
They
see
are.
them. That is the one of the most beautiful illustrations of a found family right there
Yeah.
at the moment. And
Yeah.
Robin feels that sense of being loved and belonging and
Yep.
something she hasn't had since she was
Yes.
a little girl, you know.
Yes.
That is another thing that One Piece I think does for us is it gives us a sense of belonging vicariously through the characters, but also just as fans of the series, we love getting
Yeah.
together and talking about it and feeling like we belong to a big family in that sense.
Yeah.
And we're all Nakama here, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, we are. I
Yeah,
mean, that's my crew.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. No, it's
Um,
just so beautiful.
it really is. It
Yeah.
really is. And I think there's something special about I mean, as I said, like on my reread, like there's something special about each and every character. And I think
Hmm.
Oda is very deliberate about who they are and what they do. One more thing about Sanji. I
Yeah.
love that he has a thing that he just won't do. I love that his thing is that no matter what, he won't hit a woman.
Hmm.
I love that he nerfs himself in that way
Yeah.
because it forces him to try to develop around it. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
like that he has a conviction, he has a code that he'll go by regardless, and I respect that about him.
And I think we do develop around our handicaps, if you will,
Yep,
our you know our flaws, and that's life, right?
yep, yep,
Yeah. I mean, all the characters have these backstories and traumatic experiences and flaws. And I also love, by the way, Sanji and Zoro's relationship.
yes,
Yes. You know, if you read it very superficially, think these two hate each other,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
No,
But they
no,
have so much respect for each other.
they are brothers.
Yeah,
They're absolute brothers. And even with the names they call each other, Mosshead or
yeah,
whatever, you know,
yeah,
and but there's this clear just and that's not easy to pull off, I think, as a
yeah.
writer, is to give you this superficial versus the actual beneath the surface, what's
Yep.
really going on here. But Oda does it so well with those two. I just love
As,
that
and
rivalry. Yeah.
you see the most in or where it becomes the most obvious is in Thriller Bark,
Hmm.
where Zoro's nothing happened moment, where
Yeah.
it was very much like Zoro steps up, Sanji's like, no, I'll do it. I'm the one who's most expendable or whatever. And Zoro's like, shut up, you know? Like shut up. And then immediately everything happens. Sanji wakes up. First thing he goes to do is go find Zoro.
Yep.
Um, and even after that, something that I noticed on a reread is like how this entire time in Sabari, when Kuma comes in and everything, Sanji's like looking at Zoro because he's the only one who knows that Zoro is injured. Luffy still doesn't know. I mean,
Mhm.
Robin and Brook knew, I think. Um,
Robin figured it out. Yeah.
yeah, Robin figured it out.
Yeah.
But he's very much like, oh my gosh, I need to step in to help Zoro because people are expecting him to be able to handle this.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact he can't right
Right.
now.
Right.
So, you know, even like I think someone grabbed Zoro's swords and everything and help. Like it was just a very nice moment of like just realizing like, oh, they do like each other, they do have each other's backs, and they do, you know,
Right.
respect each other to that extent. Um, I think there's also a moment. I don't remember when it happened, but I feel like there is a moment where Zoro acknowledges or one of them acknowledged that the other one, if whoever's with the other one, they're
Mm.
fine.
Right.
Something like that.
I don't
I just don't
remember.
remember where it happened.
There's a moment in Long Ring, Long Island where they actually have
Hmm.
to work together.
Yes.
Um, you know,
Yeah.
which is it's I think often dismissed as one of the goofiest of the arcs,
Oh,
but
that's one of my favorite arcs.
it actually sets up a whole lot of this is an Oda thing too, where he'll have a
Yep.
goofy, seemingly just more superficial arc that
Yeah.
actually introduces the themes that he's going to be exploring in the
Yep.
next big serious arc,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so when you see that important interaction between Sanji and Zoro there, you know that probably in the next arc you're going to see that collaboration being
Yeah.
pivotal to what happens,
Yep.
or the just the idea of the team being like a family, the idea
Hmm.
that having a member of the team like Chopper being taken away from
Taken
them,
away. Yeah. What's gonna
right?
happen? Yeah.
Yeah, which sets up exactly what happens,
Yes. Yep.
right? Having a
Yep.
member of the family taken away, you
Yeah.
know, in Water 7. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
And
just
we lose two.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know if you did you read the physical volumes for this?
I'm only reading I'm reading through Viz,
This?
the digital
The app.
subscription that I have. Yeah. Yeah.
So in the do you have any of the One Piece volumes?
I actually don't have any physical volumes yet.
So in the physical volumes, in the beginning of every volume, there is a
Yeah.
list of every character
Oh, really?
who there's a list of every character who's in this arc.
Oh, huh. That is
Or
something I haven't seen.
who's
Yeah.
relevant in this arc. And something interesting that Oda does during Water 7 is so usually he has the Straw Hats, he has um the let's see what's another crew that they faced. Oh, let's say like CP9. So you'll
Okay.
have the Straw Hats, he'll have CP9,
Right.
and he'll have like the different factions of people in their own sections, and
Uh-huh.
basically just gives like just a very brief bio of each character when he can, so
Mm.
that we know going into the chapter who we're dealing with. In that arc, I think Usopp is separated from the crew.
Uh-huh.
So he's in a different space from the crew, and then when
Okay.
Sniper King comes out, he's completely replaced because Usopp wasn't in Enies lobby, and Sniper King joined in. Um,
Okay.
and and Robin's name is kind of like, or her face is kind of like rubbed out
Oh,
in it,
wow.
and so it's like
Huh.
this is also what was one of the benefits of rereading this story with the physical volumes, the
Oh.
question corner and these little things.
Well, I do get
um
SBS. I do get
yeah,
the SBS
yeah.
in this digital subscription. So
Oh,
yeah.
the SBS also like changed my entire perception because I'm like, oh, I understand who Oda is. I
Uh,
get him, and I can read the story through the lens of knowing the kind of person he is now. You know what
yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a thing where I actually have a thing with this the same thing I'm talking about with the pictures.
Yeah.
I have a I don't have a full theory, but because of it makes me distrust Shanks very heavily.
Hmm.
Um, and I have a whole theory about it. This is not a spoiler because there's no proof of this at all.
Right.
But I just feel like I don't understand what Shanks' role in the end is going to be.
Hmm.
And I feel like Oda is prepping us for something big because Shanks is the only person other than the crew who has remained on in that little section of every volume
Hmm.
for the entire story. Like Oda
Hmm.
makes it a thing of keeping Shanks' picture there
Huh.
throughout. Whereas like when we leave Enies lobby, it's a whole new set of characters who appear on that. And
Right.
as we get introduced to more characters, then they appear and then they go. And Shanks is on every single volume. And I'm
Interesting.
like, and so for me, I'm like, why do you keep reminding us of this character? You know, what is the purpose of keeping him here for this entire
He
time?
hasn't, I mean, he did appear in Marineford
Briefly.
briefly, very
Yeah.
briefly.
Yeah.
I mean, just very brief mentions or hints here and
Yeah.
there, but he doesn't
Yeah.
seem all that present really in the
Yeah,
story.
he's not in
Except that Luffy's wearing his hat the whole time.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. But
just trying.
I feel like it's not something that let's say it was for the purpose of, someone picking up the manga for the first time.
Right.
I don't think we need to know about Shanks in Water 7. You know, I don't think he's relevant. So I'm like, why, Oda, why are you keeping him here
Hmm.
this entire time, you know? So yeah, I'm very distrustful of him. Um,
Huh. Huh.
I like him. I don't think he's a bad guy, but I question his motives and his personality because, like you, I am still waiting to see a little more of
Okay.
him.
I guess everyone else too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Wow. Huh. Well, and we can't not talk about Luffy. I mean, we've mentioned him a couple of times
Yeah.
here, but why do you think people love Luffy so much? What's your take on this character? It seems just unique to me. And but there is something special about this character. Whether or not he's your favorite character, I think you have to agree that
Yeah.
he's the thing that holds it all together. This whole thing.
So I never rank Luffy in my character rankings because I think he is, if Sanji's number one, Luffy's number zero. You
Uh-huh.
know, like like it's a given.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I think the special thing about Luffy is because of how simple he is
Hmm.
in terms of like everything in his life or every decision he makes is very, very simple. You know, he has one goal or he has one thing that he's going to do and he's going to do it. He makes it very easy for
Gonna
himself,
be
you
king of
know?
the pirates. That's
He's going to
it.
be king of the pirates
Yeah.
and, and he cares about the people who he loves.
Yeah.
Like that's basically what like frames every decision that he
Which,
makes.
by the way, the people he loves is anyone who feeds him.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. But I think people love Luffy for the same reason or for the reason why they dislike Usopp. I think I think Luffy is who we think we are or who we want to be.
Uh-huh.
And I think Usopp is who we are most of the time.
Yeah.
And what we're ashamed of ourselves.
Yeah. In
I
terms of
think
Luffy being like fearless, you mean, and just being
fearless,
that
the
pursuit,
drive, the
dream.
pursuit of his dreams and his
Yeah.
goals and like, going after it no matter what. Whereas
Yeah.
Usopp is very much like, I have dreams, but I'm kind of afraid to go after them and but I do want to do it, but I'm scared and I think a lot of us, although Usopp is like on the extreme side of fear, I
Mm.
do think a lot of us are afraid of accomplishing our dreams a lot of the time.
Uh-huh.
Even if we know very clearly what we want from our lives.
Very
And we
true.
have a lot of self-doubt, about, what we can or cannot do. And it's very much like you kind of have to like go after it and chip after it step by
Yeah.
step to get there. So I
Whereas
think
Luffy, is there, I guess after Marineford, you can see some self-doubt there in that
yes,
moment of terrible grief. But
yes.
most of the time, he's all confidence,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's his friends who help him get out of that, even if they're not present. But number one, it's like his number one, knowing that he has them as support, but then also knowing that he's also responsible for protecting them.
Yeah, and you
That
just
he
brought
might
up
have lost his brother.
my second favorite moment really is in that post-war arc
Yeah,
where Luffy is reminded after all this horrible, just gut-wrenching grief from losing Ace, he's reminded of his crew, you know,
yeah,
and that gives him purpose again.
yeah,
That kind of he's still got that grief to carry. It hasn't
yeah.
gone away, but he's able to carry it, knowing that
Yep,
he has these people out there waiting for him, and that was just absolutely broke me. That moment was just
yeah,
so beautifully done. Again,
yeah.
it's about family. Yeah.
I think anyone experiencing, loss, like or grief
Yep.
is the kind of thing where it's like it's not something that you can necessarily heal from. I
Mm.
think you kind of like adapt to it,
Yep.
but it's very much like if your heart was whole, you and then a piece of it is taken away, you kind of learn to live with that piece still being um
Yep.
absent. You know?
Yeah.
And so there will be times where you realize like, wait, I'm not operating on a full heart, but I'll be okay because I am surviving. The blood is still pumping,
Yep.
you know? I lost a friend a couple years ago,
I'm
one
so
of my
sorry.
best one of my best friends from to cancer,
Huh.
and it just so happened that the she passed away on Thanksgiving.
Wow.
And I got the news while I was getting ready to go to a friend's house. A lot of my none of my um immediate family lives in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So Thanksgiving I usually spend with either like an aunt and cousins or friends.
Mm.
And I was getting ready to go to my friends for Thanksgiving, and I remember what really helped with dealing with that news was being around people who I love and who cared for me, and just being in that environment where um it was very much okay. I didn't even tell them actually that it had just happened.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I just went to the Thanksgiving, and but it was nice being in a space where I felt loved and that kind of thing.
It
And
would
I
have been
think
hard to talk about, even, I'm sure.
yeah, it
Yeah.
it wasn't even that. I'm very open about talking about these things, but for
Uh-huh.
me it was less about that and more like not trying to make people feel awkward,
Uh-huh. And you were doing it
and
out of
ruining the
consideration.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told them after the fact that like, and I did thank them. I'm like, you didn't do this on purpose, but I let them know that, it was a great place to be during that time.
Yeah.
Just because I had that support, even if it wasn't a deliberate support to comfort me for that time. I was comforted because I am surrounded by
Mm.
people who, keep me going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that moment I can completely understand with Luffy and
Mm.
his friends and his crew, because it's like, yes, I still have people who I love and I cherish, and it makes me more deliberate with these relationships as well
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. No, that is so true. You learn to appreciate a lot more, yeah, as you experience loss. But yeah, and it's true that grief is something you never really put down. You just learn
Yeah.
how to carry it. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. But it helps to have your people, and
Exactly.
to
Exactly.
share that with them, and they'll help you carry it. But
Yeah.
yeah. So anything else about Luffy that you feel I mean, we could talk probably all day just about Luffy, honestly, but in terms of
Um,
why he's so compelling, why does everyone love Luffy? Does anyone not love Luffy? I mean,
I think there are a small
there are
population of
there
people
Luffy
who don't.
haters out there? I
There
mean,
are
you can't
Luffy haters. There are definitely
really.
Luffy haters, but I think it's a matter of like not understanding the purpose of the character.
Uh-huh.
I think people do
I don't
engage
see how you
with
could read One Piece and hate Luffy at the same time.
I
But
think some people. So for one, I think he's someone that people that grows on people at some
uh-huh.
cases. But I also think there are people who watch One Piece. Shonen is interesting because it's like a lot of people are here just for the fights.
Uh-huh.
And so I think One Piece leans heavier on the story than the fights.
Okay.
And so I think when it comes to like looking at Luffy, he can be annoying to some people because people think he's stupid or he's dumb, or like why is he doing the crazy stuff and setting us back, when he could
Right.
just be following the plan and getting business done. Uh and I think that's how he can be read to some people.
Yeah.
Um
Well, he's
for
certainly
me.
annoying, but we still love him, right? Yeah.
But I feel like people experience the story or go into these stories for different reasons.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
people like certain types of not everyone, I think, appreciates the deeper stuff about One Piece. I think a lot of people are just like, for example, like I love when Zoro does the really cool thing. You know what I mean? I'm here to
It's
see
cool.
Zoro do the cool thing,
Yeah, yeah.
as opposed to like everything else that goes on in this story, which I do think that they're missing out on something very beautiful,
Hmm.
but people engage with things differently.
Yeah. Yeah, no, one of the things that I love about the series is just how much and how interestingly and how subtly and but also just how beautifully Oda explores compassion. And I talked about that in my second video for Dressrosa, but there are just so many examples throughout the entire series.
Yes.
And it's not just a simple be compassionate or compassion equals good. It's actually a really interesting, nuanced, thorough exploration. I mean, you have
Mhm.
characters like Frankie, for example. We haven't talked about Frankie yet, but there's a character I love, and he is just
I
immediately compassionate. And
I love Frankie.
oh, let's talk about Frankie. Yeah.
Frankie is the most balanced crew member in my opinion.
Interesting. Okay.
I
Okay.
think I've in my re-exploration of One Piece,
Uh-huh.
I've just noticed that he fits in every space. You know what I mean? He can be cool. He can be super over emotional.
Yeah.
He can be silly. Like I think he's just the perfect balance of just like he's the cool uncle. You know what I mean? Like he's just
Uh-huh.
like if you need him to be serious, he's there for you. He's gonna listen. I mean, and I think one moment, one very small moment he had with Sanji exemplified that for me where so for one, Frankie had a really good Dressrosa arc
Yeah. Yeah.
because he's the reason why they stayed. He said he can't leave because they need to help these people.
He's compassionate. Yeah.
He's very compassionate, and Luffy was like, if you say so, we're down, you know?
Yep.
Another thing I appreciate about post time skip One Piece, it's very much like they have a different level of trust in each
Mm.
other, where
Mm.
like everyone acknowledges like they've got it. Everyone can go do their own thing. They've got it, you know. And if Frankie says we need to stay, then that's a good enough reason for me, you know.
Yep. Yep.
And so he has a moment with Sanji where Sanji's with Viola,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they all have their different missions. And Frankie calls to check in, and he's like, Sanji, what's going on? And Sanji's like, I'm in love, and I met this beautiful woman, blah 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 blah. Blah. And Frankie's response is like, that's nice.
Yeah.
So what about the mission? And I'm like, he could have totally been like, what is wrong with this idiot? But he's like, he takes the time to like,
Yeah.
acknowledge Sanji and his feelings. He's like, that's nice. I'm very happy for you. But can we stay, not to change the topic, but can we
Right.
just stay a little focused here?
And also, I think Frankie's moment of joining the crew might be my favorite, where he's
The-
chasing
yeah.
after he's chasing after Luffy and everyone else who
The-
they have his Speedo and he's
yes.
running through the streets. Oh,
Yes.
and there's that moment at the
Oh.
end where Robin takes things into her own
Yeah.
hands.
Literally.
And poor Frankie's.
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
my. So I think I might have caught up somewhere around Water 7, which is also like where Water 7 is my favorite arc. Water 7 Enies Lobby is my favorite.
I think it's just
Yeah.
absolute
It's
brilliance.
a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even Frankie's introduction, I don't remember if you caught that he would be the new crew member. I
I
don't.
actually did guess
You
it.
did?
It was one of the
Yeah.
few times where I actually saw, I think it's going to be Frank because they needed at that moment, they needed a, what is the
A
word?
shipwright.
Shipwright. A
Yes.
shipwright. They needed a shipwright. And I thought, okay, there were several candidates that were possible there, but
Yeah.
he seemed like the most outlandish one. So
Yes.
that had to
Yeah.
be right, you know?
Yeah. But I
So,
think it was played well because he's a wrecker
yeah.
and not by trade and not a shipwright by trade. I
Mm,
think that's where Oda kind of like tried to like also like just him being the villain.
yeah.
Um, but I think he's hi- everything Frankie does throughout that arc too. His conversation with Usopp, where it's just him and Usopp in his little base with the
Mm,
Mary,
yeah.
and he's like, this ship is done. We're scrapping it. It's broken. Like what are you doing? And Usopp explaining everything and him like just having a moment with Usopp crying and
Mm,
he's like, "Oh my gosh, I understand. I
yeah.
understand why you have this connection to this ship. I'm sorry." But and then still being able to bring us back and say like, I understand everything you're going through,
Yeah.
but you do need to recognize that if you do love this ship, you need to let it go.
Yeah.
You can't hold on to it selfishly because you do have a relationship with it. The ship acknowledges that you have a relationship with it,
Yeah.
but you need to let it go. And he is so compassionate
And
and he's
it's
so
that's
empathetic.
another marvelous portrayal of loss and grief.
Yes.
That is
Yeah.
exactly how it feels. You want to hold on to this person,
Yeah.
not let them go, but there is a time when that is the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah.
And as hard as that is, and of course, we all cried during that funeral.
The Merry funeral. Yes.
Mary
Oh my
funeral.
God.
Oh my goodness. And just seeing
We
their
cried for a
memories.
ship. We cried.
We were part of the crew. We cried for the ship. Just such a beautifully done thing with all the flashbacks
Yes.
and just knowing that what it represents to them, it is their family, you know,
Yes.
that is where they became a family
Yep.
and is one of the family, you know.
Yes.
It was just so powerful.
It
But
is it is
yeah,
the
go ahead.
physical it's the physical space,
Yeah.
that kind of um personifies their
Yep.
family, you know?
Yeah,
Um
exactly. Exactly. But
Such a
I'll tell
great.
you the moment that convinced me I was going to love this series, and it goes back to the very first saga, East Blue, was Nami's "Help Me" moment.
Yes.
That was when I realized, okay, before that, it was just, oh, this is fun, this is goofy, okay, I'm having fun here.
Yes.
That moment, I think it was the first time I had tears reading One Piece. And that
Oh,
was the moment when I thought, oh, this is okay. I get this, you know. That was Nami. And I love her character as well because of that moment of vulnerability shows you
mm-hmm.
how much more there is to this character. And you, at this point, you realize she's not some just greedy, thief
Yeah.
who's good at navigating. There's so much sacrifice to her character. There's so much beauty to this character and vulnerability, and that
Yes.
really made me realize, oh, okay, Oda's doing something special here.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
You don't have to pause it. You don't have to pause it. I'll be back in like two
Okay.
seconds.
All right, very good. So yeah, I'll just keep talking about Nami there, and then from then on, I've found her character to be. I mean, she's literally the one who gets us to where we're trying to go as the navigator. There's tremendous. Oh, you've got. Oh my goodness.
It's not showing.
I
But
mean,
yeah.
there it
There we
is. There
go.
it is. Oh,
It's
okay.
not. I
So,
had to get it. That is also one of my favorite moments.
yeah. Oh yeah,
It's
it's special, and she's had a lot of great ones since as well. But she's also, I think, a lot of them have their own intuition about the others,
Yeah,
and it feels like Nami in many moments is a character who helps keep the crew together.
she
Really,
does. Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yes. No, I absolutely love that moment. If you haven't gotten the chance, I do, even if it's just that scene, watch it in the anime.
Uh-huh.
Because like her stabbing her arm, the voice actress,
Yeah.
phenomenal performance,
Huh.
throughout that whole scene. It's super powerful.
Yeah.
Um, and I do think that's one of I'm more of a manga fan when it comes to One Piece, but there are certain things that they did really well in the anime, and one of that
Yeah.
scene is one of them, where you feel it, and I think it's also like it is the most like emotionally damaging scene that we've had, because the way it builds up, where it's like, she's trying her best to keep things together,
Right.
and
Right.
Usopp pulls up. She has to get rid of Usopp. Zoro pulls up. She has to get rid of Zoro because they're kind of like interfering in everything. She's saving the money. She's almost got it, and then Arlong takes steals the money,
Yeah.
and it's like she just breaks down,
Yeah.
you know, and she finally asks for help, which sorry to go back to Luffy.
Yeah. It's
Luffy
great.
doesn't help people who don't help themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's also something that I like about him. He's not just the like, oh, that's kind of what separates him from a lot of characters.
Hmm.
He doesn't just go like, oh, you need help, so I'm gonna go help you.
Mm-hmm.
In that Nami scene, he lies down Nojiko is telling the story of what everything Nami's been through, and he's like, I don't care. I'm going for a walk. Like I
Yeah.
don't want to hear it. That's not relevant to me, you know.
Mm,
And it wasn't until she says he finds her stabbing herself or whatever, and he puts that on her head, and she says, "Help me."
yeah.
And then he's like, "That's what I've been waiting for." Of
And that
course,
gesture, of course, putting the hat on her is
yes.
that's like you're part of the family, you
And
know.
yes, and it builds up from the treasure thing, the treasure being his hat and everything. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm getting chills.
Yeah. It is
It's
marvelous
powerful
storytelling.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well, I don't know, any other favorite moments that you want to bring in that we haven't talked about, or characters? We haven't talked about a lot of characters,
there's
really.
so
But
many characters.
there's
I
so
can
many
go on and
great
on.
ones. But,
So two very powerful moments for me that I can think of right now are Skypiea.
okay.
In Skypiea. The first one was I remember the first time I Nami spots the other half of the house
Mm,
on the what was it called? The part with the place with the verse.
right.
Um
I know what you're
when
talking about. Yeah.
when she spots the other half of that house, I got chills
Mm.
because it was like, oh wait, there's something going on.
It's like a puzzle. You
There's
finally
some
see, oh, we've been looking at a puzzle here, and
yeah, yeah,
here's the
yeah. And
solution.
then now you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What's happening? This little silly half house thing on Jaya is
Yeah.
now connected to, you know, everything else, which is kind of like a microcosm of One Piece in general when stuff like that happens, when you're like, oh, wait a minute, this was a deliberate decision,
This is
you know,
connected. Yeah.
and then the second moment was when he rings that bell and we
Mm.
see the shadow of him in the clouds
Yeah.
and Cricket is looking up at him and he's like, wow, like they did it, you know?
Yeah.
Such a powerful moment. That was like one of the greatest climaxes of an arc, I think.
Yeah.
Even like going back to like how the arc started with the giant shadows in the sky, the
Uh-huh.
giants in the sky,
Yeah.
making that connection of like, oh, this whole time it was the shadows of people in the
Shadows.
sky.
Yeah.
And then the symbolism of the bell and everything, and being like
Mm.
letting them know we made it, we did it, we're here,
Yeah.
we have accomplished your goal. Nolan was not a liar, you know.
Right.
uh, um,
Is
and
that
then even
one of the sagas that you actually appreciated more as an older reader as opposed to when you were younger?
I always liked Skypiea.
You always did.
I didn't know that people didn't like Skypiea until like I connected with the internet people. I think a lot of people's opinions, I've realized also a lot of people's opinions stem from only watching the anime.
Right.
Um, I don't think the anime is bad per se, but I think the direction can be different. The pacing is different, and so you're staying when you're watching a 20-minute episode. I will admit, like going through Skypiea in the anime can feel like a drag, just because
Hmm.
there's a lot of playing around before, unseriousness, and you kind of feel like get to the point. Whereas with reading,
Yeah.
I can read a volume in less than an hour,
Yeah.
and I can get through in an arc, especially these earlier arcs, I can get through one arc in a day,
Mm.
as opposed to like watching a 20-minute episode and waiting to figure out what's going on. And then you get the Nolan backstory and like, we're still not finished yet. We have a whole, who are these guys? When reading it, it was, for me, it was just very much like, oh, this is great and paced reasonably well, in my opinion.
Mm.
And a
Yeah.
great climax. I loved the Nolan backstory. Very emotional, very powerful. Um,
Yep.
I am curious about how people receive Oda's criticisms of like religions, especially
Uh-huh.
like native religions and stuff like that, because I think he handled it well, but I think it can also be taken as, a criticism of religion. Um,
So maybe criticism of a certain way that institutional religion is practiced, but not
Yeah,
maybe just blanket religion, period.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, you can find plenty of, let's be honest, no matter whether you're religious or not, I think you have to acknowledge there are plenty of examples of people unthinkingly conforming. I mean, the
yeah,
people that are being controlled there are literally sheep, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
yes,
this idea of just blind conformity and worship of something that an image that is of someone who is not compassionate, not acting from a place of goodness, but acting from a place of abuse and dominance
yep.
and oppression.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, you can find plenty of examples of figures in history who have used a kind of a cult-like, let's say, attraction in order to impose their destructive tendencies on the world, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
So I don't think he's at all. I don't personally feel like that's a controversial thing to say. I mean, there's just
okay,
look, this happened so many times.
yeah, yeah,
Religion as it is, you could look at it as a neutral thing in a sense that it can be used to encourage people to do beautiful things, to love other people, to make the world better, to aspire to good qualities, whatever you might say. But it also has been used plenty of times, unfortunately, and there are plenty of examples to bring out the worst in people, to
yeah.
instill hatred, and to encourage fear, and just yeah. So I feel like is that really controversial? Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I think it is one of these topics that are very touchy, and people
I mean, you just say the
can,
word religion, and a lot of people just kind of like, nope, I'm not talking
yeah,
about.
yeah. So I mean, I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah,
I think he did a great job, but I
yeah,
know how I feel about these things, and so for
yeah.
me, I'm not sure if Oda's way of doing it is a way that offends people or not.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
I guess some could
yeah,
be, I suppose, if they're that sensitive to any criticism of any religion. But
yes,
I don't think he's not saying anything that really isn't true.
yeah,
Unfortunately. Yeah.
yes.
So. But
So
cool. And the final moment that did we cover that? You wanted to talk about Skype? Anything else that we're missing from? I mean, we could go on and on, really, but I want to give you a chance to anything else before we talk about your channel.
my next thing you haven't seen yet, so we'll talk
Ah,
about that when you get there.
okay, very good, very good. It's an appointment then. We'll have to talk about.
Yes, yes.
Let me know when I'm there.
I
Uh,
will. I will.
Good, good. So I do want to give people who are watching a sense of what your channel is going to be all about, and you don't have to know everything yet because a lot of people don't know what they're,
Yeah.
exactly where they're going to go. But what are some ideas you have? What would you like to accomplish with your channel? What are your goals?
I mean, like I said here in this conversation, I think there are a lot of characters that even I feel like I misunderstood or didn't take the time to sit with long
Hmm.
enough on my first read through of the series. And I think something that I do want to focus on is trying to paint certain characters or certain arcs in a different light than is usually um, shown in.
Hmm.
So for example, taking some time with Usopp to like look at, his development. And one of my early ideas for when I first decided to do this, one of the things I wanted to do was go arc by arc or maybe volume by volume to point out the moments, pick a character and point out the moments of development or the important moments that each character has,
Love it.
and try like sit with like what has this thing done for
Uh-huh.
this character? What does it tell you about this character?
Yeah.
So I do want to do a lot of character analysis. I do want to do a video on Long Ring Long Land. Uh,
Okay.
because I know that's a universally disliked arc, and I think it gets way too much hate. I think it's very fun, and my hard-headed hot take is like you if you don't like Long Ring Long Land, you don't like One Piece. Or in its purest form. Because I do think it's a very light-hearted arc, and I think it does suffer from coming in between Skypiea and Water 7.
There's that. And
Um,
also, I think a lot of those complaints are from
Anime.
anime. Yeah, where
Yes,
they
yes.
elongated the story, even added,
That
I think, whole like
they
I
had
have.
like two other games or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Which I completely valid. Valid. It made it stay longer than it needed to stay.
Okay,
But I do think a big part of One Piece are like these fun little intra-crew interactions. And
sure.
I think Long Ring Long Land is a beautiful arc for that.
Hmm.
As you said, like it preps us for what's coming.
Yep.
Um, Preps us even more for what's coming that you haven't gotten to yet.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Okay.
in certain ways, I think it does even like geographically, like the concept of tides and stuff like that. Like we forget a lot of the times that we are on the ocean,
Yeah,
and that's something that happens, in real life. There are tides that shifts, you know.
and it's linked to Water 7
It's linked to Water 7, the Aqua
that
Laguna.
way as well. Yeah,
Yes.
the tides. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's it's done. I think it's a really fun arc, and I do want to take some time to be like, here's why Long Ring Long Land is important, you know.
Okay. Cool.
I want to talk about Usopp, I want to talk about Sanji, I want to talk about Frankie as I did. I want to talk about Buggy. Buggy
Buggy. Okay. All right.
Buggy is my king of the pirates. Luffy is my king of the pirates too, but Buggy is hot take.
Here they come.
Hot take. I I think Buggy's gonna be king of the pirates. Um,
What?
but
Okay. All right. Well, you know something I don't then.
but I do have some theories. I'm very careful about going into the theory space, but I do have like a theory that I developed about Buggy.
Okay.
Um,
Cool.
that is, I think, solidified a little extra in things that you haven't seen yet.
Okay.
But I want to do a video about Buggy. I said Sanji. Is there anyone else I have anything I thought of? Hold on, let me just open my docs right now to see what I have. I kind of like when I have an idea of something that I want to write, I kind of just write the title of what it is so that when I'm
Gotcha.
ready I can
Yep. I
um
keep those ideas somewhere for sure. And you already have
yeah.
videos on the channel.
Yes. So I have three videos up right now.
Okay.
Four technically because I think I have like a shorter one that's just about um why One Piece is not too long.
Hmm.
Oh, I actually do have like a longer one that I was planning to come out with.
Okay.
About why One Piece is not too long. Um
Good. Good.
I think I do want to talk about Oda's art style as
Yeah, you don't
well.
see that often. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I do love Oda's art style, and I do think it's something that is perfect for
For this
what this
story,
story is.
it's the heart of it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I think it allows him to be like Luffy a lot more flexible
Yeah.
with the story he's telling, you know?
Literally and figuratively. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. His that's another thing that like I think I appreciated more on my reread is I think it feels like it's obvious, but like a comic or a manga is a very specific medium.
Hmm.
And when you write in that medium, you have to make deliberate choices on how you're telling the story because it's through images.
Yep.
You have to tell a story through images. And not acknowledging that, like, I've always acknowledged Oda as a writer, but I
Mm.
haven't always acknowledged him as an artist.
Mm.
Not that I didn't like One Piece's art. It never occurred to me like, no, he's also drawing it, you know?
Huge dimension
Um,
of this. Yeah.
yeah, and so that's something else that I think I do want to write on,
Because a lot of
and
that
speak
emotion
about.
that we feel is through the art, actually.
Yes,
It's not in the
yes,
words. Sometimes it's actually just pure images. Yeah.
yep, yep. And then it's also like how you scan the page, like what he's doing, the deliberate things that he does
Yep.
to help guide your eyes, you
Yep.
know, to each panel. Um, so yeah, that's something that I do want to talk about too. There are certain things in the SBS as well that I think he cleverly uses to foreshadow certain things and add to how you can read the story. There's something that happens in the arc before where the manga is now, where
Yeah.
the thing happens and I'm like, this was kind of weird. And then I was like, oh no, I've seen this before in the SBS. It wasn't like a blatant thing, but like it added more context to Oda's ability to like, kind of foreshadow
Yeah.
things in a way.
You think you'll ever talk about the cover stories at all? And
Cover stories are interesting because it's like I do love the cover stories, but I think I haven't sat with them long enough to decide how much there is to talk about them.
I don't think I ever talk about them, but I do read
Yeah.
look at them, of
Yeah,
course.
me too. I do love them. I do appreciate them. It's so where I speak about the cover stories is like I love the fact that we're still following everyone else's journeys.
Yeah.
I've always, and then also even some characters we're introduced to very early on through cover stories. Like I think Kami and Papagu were introduced in
Uh-huh.
cover stories with Hachan.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think there. I do appreciate that. Something I try to tell people is like if they enjoyed Game of Thrones and like the storytelling of like there's these people on that side of the world doing stuff and there's these people on that side of the stuff doing stuff and we're changing our lens of who we're following. Oda kind of does like a version of that where it's like, oh yeah, Buggy's done, his arc is done, but is it? He's still on his journey.
Right.
His journey is not his arc might be done, but his journey isn't over.
Yeah.
You know? And so I like the fact that we're able, even the stuff with Ace. We got a lot of Ace stuff, I feel. No, was it through cover stories?
Yeah. Oh, there was a Ace cover story for sure.
Yes,
He
yeah.
was journeying, and I think he was probably chasing after Blackbeard.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Before we saw
So
him more prominently. Yeah.
yeah, so we're following these characters which I think is one of the things that One Piece does better than a lot of other shonen is that I think a lot of shonen is very much like, oh, we have this big bad or we have this person and we fight them and then we're done and we never hear about them again. Bye bye, on to the next. And I think Oda does a good job of not only foreshadowing people or introducing them very early on, but
Yeah.
also keeping in touch with what's happening with them so that when he's ready to bring them back in the story, we're
Mm,
not confused and wondering like, oh, where did he come from? It's very
right.
much it's very deliberate that and very intentional in that even if this is like our path, there are intertwining,
Mm,
paths going on.
yeah. Yeah. It's vast. It's vast.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm always fascinated as the ability to like keep things in order. I mean, like he'll also do things where like he'll mention something like randomly in like one chapter or one arc and you completely forget about it and then he'll come back to it. It's like, wait a minute. Like
Yep. You have that eureka moment when you realize, oh, he mentioned that like 500 chapters ago.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. No, he mentions the Warlords of the Sea,
Yeah.
um, introducing Mihawk, like in the first saga of this story.
Yeah.
Brilliant move, brilliant move. I mean, having Zoro confront his goal,
Yep.
in the first few chapters, did so many things to this story.
Absolutely.
Where it's like, I think it scaled the world. It said that this is where we are. This is where we need to be, and we're gonna have to get there. It
Yeah.
also said that there are seven of them, so chances are we're gonna encounter these people, these other people,
Mm.
and it did this thing where it's like it kind of wrote a lot of the story for Oda already. He had like it gave an outline for us. I know some things that he didn't have. There were some things he didn't plan out very very far ahead, but I do think it gave like a vague outline where it's like you can reason out that we're gonna probably meet some of these people.
Yeah.
so that when they do pop up, it's not a surprise. It's very much like, oh, this was planted in our brains very early on that
And that was one of
this,
that Zoro Mihawk encounter was actually one of the few moments that I saw I could see ahead and I thought to myself, that's a future mentor for him,
yes,
and I turned
yes.
out to be right that time.
Yeah.
Really wrong a
It
lot
took a
more than
while,
I'm
but it
yeah,
happened. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's also a powerful moment for Zoro to like bow down to Mihawk at that point and be like going to your rival and being like, please train me to be better. Not only because I need to beat you, but I also need to protect, people. Very powerful character moment for Zoro.
Yeah, yeah.
I
It's-
do want to do a Zoro one. I take part in the Sanji Zoro rivalry
of course.
sometimes. It's you have to. So I will often downplay Zoro for fun. I do acknowledge how great Zoro is as a character.
Oh
But
yeah.
I do want to um put my bias aside at some point to do
Good luck with that. Yeah.
yeah to do a Zoro video.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
the two of them, you can say one thing, they wouldn't be what they are without the other.
yeah, agreed. Agreed. Yeah, I think they keep each other um they're they hold each other accountable. They
Hmm.
keep each other accountable. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As brothers will. Well,
Yes.
this has been so much fun. I'm really, really
Agreed.
excited that you have this started this channel. I think people are going to get a lot of value from it. The videos you're describing, I think they're going to be really valuable and
Yes.
insightful. So I can't wait to see how things develop for you there,
Yes.
Jonathan. But
Same here. Same
thank you so
here.
much for your time here. Uh,
Thank you.
Thank you for being, leaving me all those comments. I get to thank you in person now. Thank you for leaving me all those wonderful comments that have been so helpful to me, and this is my way of not just thanking you, but all of the beautiful One Piece fans out there who have been so helpful to me on this journey. It's been really something. I do feel like I'm part of a big family here.
Yes.
So,
You are part of this family and it's I think I told you this when we first spoke that you can only experience One Piece for the first time once. And the closest thing to that is getting to see someone else go through that process
yeah,
themselves.
yeah.
So the fact that you're sharing your journey with us, you're sharing your thoughts with us, I think a lot of us, I think we all really, really appreciate it. And so thank you for giving your insight and your analysis and sharing your journey with us. Also, and thank you for sharing your platform with me
Wow.
today.
It's my honor and
And
my pleasure, really. So,
yes, and also thank you for giving me an hour and a half to talk about my favorite thing.
yeah. No, it's definitely what would Luffy. I guess Luffy would do that, right? For a Nakama. So
Yeah, of course. Of
yeah.
course. Yeah. He did that with Sanji. He sat down and listened to Sanji talk about the All Blue. One of
There we
my
go.
favorite panels too. That's
Yeah.
one of my favorite panels.
I think
The joy
Luffy
on Sanji's face
Luffy
talking about the All
appreciates
Blue.
he
Yeah.
appreciates passion. Luffy
Yes.
understands passion, right?
Yes, he does. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, thank you everyone for watching, and until next time.
Hi everyone.